Hello, welcome to this Lyra tutorial, and today we're gonna be creating a simple and clean start project of Lyra, and as a bonus we're gonna be putting a little feature that will be able to walk and jog using all the Lyra framework. Lyra is such a big project and it's pretty easy to get confused on what to do or where to begin or how to really use Lyra framework in the right way, like construct your game using Lyra. Before we begin, I really recommend you guys to watch the Unreal Engine Lyra overview. That is a pretty nice video talking about Lyra starter game, and they explain a lot of important stuff about Lyra. You don't need to watch for now. You can either watch now or after this tutorial, but it's really important that you do if you haven't yet, of course. And okay, so this is the final result. As you can see, I have this locomotion that you were watching right now. As you can see, we are walking, not just jogging as the ShooterCore, and you can press shift to jog and everything works just like usual. And of course you don't have any HUD or anything related to ShooterCore, so that's our goal. We won't use anything related to ShooterCore. We are gonna create something pretty solid, and you're gonna be able to upgrade your Lyra without you losing your files. So yeah, this is the final result. Pretty clean and simple, and you can see that it works. It's pretty cool. Okay, let's go. Okay, so we are gonna start creating the project, of course, from absolute zero, and we're gonna call it Lyra base game tutorial, something like that. And yeah, okay, create. Okay, now that the project is created, we will open it. Okay, with the project opened, the first thing that we're gonna do is add a game feature. What is a game feature? Basically, this is we can call it a plugin that we're gonna put in there all our code. So for example, here we have ShooterCore and Top Down Arena. These are game feature plugins. They basically control which files or classes we are gonna load, something like that. So this is the correct way to put your code. It's not totally correct to start creating your stuff in the content, because for example, let's suppose that you need to update your project with Lyra files. They will be basically overridden. If you create with a game feature plugin, it's more organized and you won't have your files overridden. It's pretty nice. For that, we are gonna open the plugins, and here we're basically gonna click in the add button. Here we can create a game feature content only or a with C++. The content only is basically only for blueprints. You only have a folder in here, in the plugins content folder, and with C++ it will create some files for your C++ codes. And even though we won't be using C++, I also recommend you to create using the C++, because I don't know, you may need it. So click on that and don't change this path, please, and put your plugin name. That it's gonna be basically our project name, base game tutorial. You can put your name here, author, but I won't use these. Create plugin. Okay. Now that our game feature is created, it will open this window that is basically the game feature definition. You can find it right here. You'll see that there is a new plugin, and here you'll have these data assets. That is our game feature data. What we'll need to set here is basically a few things in the actions and is asset manager. The actions will add only one, that is add input config, we need to set which input config we are gonna be using, and we're gonna use the ones that we have in the base content. So yeah, they are in the content. I promise that the goal of this project is to not use anything of the ShooterCore. The inputs that we're gonna use are all in the content, so that's okay. Here, after you put add input config, you can add two input configs. One is gonna be the keyboard one, and the other one is gonna be for gamepad. You can put the type mouse and keyboard for the first one, and gamepads for the second one. And I think that this is it, only these in the actions, and below them we'll add some primary asset types to skin. It's gonna be empty. We're gonna need 3 items. The first one is going to be Lyra experience definition. And this is basically gonna search for our experiences, which ones we'll need to have in our game feature. And this is gonna be a Lyra experience definition, and it has blueprint classes. In the directories, we're gonna have only one, which is our experiences folder. For that, we're gonna add it right here. Let's create a folder called experiences, and I'm gonna set this folder here in the directories. Search for it and put here. And I think that in this role thing, we need to put always cook, and this is it. Now another item, and this one we're gonna call map. So we're gonna tell where we'll have our maps, and for the base class is gonna be world, and only one directory again, and this is gonna be our maps folder. So create the folder and set it here in the directory. And again, we need to put to always cook the cook role. Now only another one, and this one we're gonna call player mappable input config, and this is basically where we'll have our configs. Because we're gonna be using the base content ones, we're gonna put its directory here. The base class is the same as the name, player mappable input config. So add a directory and put our input configs folder. This one we won't need to put the cook role as always cook. This is it. So we finish this game feature asset file. Now let's create our map. We won't be using anything that is previously created, so new level, and let's use the basic one. Save it into our maps folder. We're gonna call it welcome. You can call it whatever you want. Okay, with our map, before we continue, let's just set this map as the default one. Welcome and welcome. Okay, right. With our default maps configured, let's create our experience. Okay, so basically go to the experiences folder and create a blueprint class. That's gonna be a Lyra experience definition, this one right here, and we're gonna call it B base game tutorial experience. Okay, open it. Now that we have our experience, I'll just close and reopen it because I prefer this simplified version. And okay, here we have some things to set. First, let's add our game feature into game features to enable. This is our base game tutorial. It's basically this one right here, base game tutorial. We put the game feature name right here, and now we can set the gameplay experience here in the map. We can put the base game tutorial experience. And just another thing that I noticed is that you can go into your project settings in the asset manager. Here in primary assets types to scan, you can go to this Lyra experience definition, index 4, and here in the directories, you'll need to put another directory and set it to your game feature experiences folder. This is, for some reason, the Lyra Framework doesn't recognize your experiences without putting it right here. I don't know if it's a bug, because it's kind of weird, but yeah. You just need to put your experiences folder here. And now if you play, you'll see that basically nothing happened because we didn't set anything about our experience. So let's close it. We're gonna need another folder called game. In here we're gonna have our pawn class. So create a blueprint class, and it's gonna be child of hero defaults. This hero default class is basically a class that they created for the pawns. This class is pretty simple, just have some features like ragdoll, death, and some equipment stuff. So it's pretty simple and we don't need to worry about using this class. It's located in the content folder, so it's not a problem if you use it. So now that we have our pawn class, we're gonna call it my hero base game tutorial. Now inside our pawn class, we're gonna set some things. Here we'll have basically this is our pawn class. If you need to create any logic about your own character, you can use this class for this. So for now we are gonna just configure the mesh. Right here we're gonna set the skeletal mesh for the invisible many and use animation blueprint. We're gonna use the base one, which is ABP mannequin base. It's located in the content folder, so again it's not a problem. We are not using the ShooterCore because this class is just for the logic. There is nothing related to cosmetics here. Because we want to see the animations, we need to set only a component called the mannequin pawn cosmetics. I'm gonna call it pawn cosmetics component. That's only these, we don't need to set anything more. So just to show, here you can set your physics asset and the default mesh. So if you wanna set them, it's right here. Only another adjustment is this mesh. We just need to put in the -88Z location. So it's right in the bottom of the capsule. And this is it. And now we can go back to our folders, and inside the game folder we can create a data asset. It's gonna be a pawn data dataset. Create, and this is gonna be a hero data base game tutorial. Also we can already create another data asset that's gonna be a ability set data asset, Lyra ability set, and this one we can call it ability set for our base game tutorial. Okay, and for the hero data we can open it and set some things here. First, the pawn class, we're gonna set our hero base game tutorial one. Only set the default camera mode to the third person. Again, this is in the content files, so it's not a problem. And because we have already created our ability set, let's add one and set it to the base game tutorial. Okay, for the ability set, let's open this guy here, ability set. Let's open it. Gonna add some abilities. For this tutorial we're gonna have only two abilities in the ability set, that are the jump, and the other one we're gonna create later actually, so just jump for now. For this we're gonna need a input tag. It's already created, so it's called input tag jump. So simply select it, and this is it for the ability set for now. And the last, I think that it's the last data asset. Let's create another one, and this is gonna be a input data. It's gonna be a Lyra input config, and we can call it input data base game tutorial. this guy we're gonna put into our hero data asset, and we're gonna put here in the input config, just select it. And this input base game data asset, we are gonna add some actions. Here we're gonna put all the actions that we'll be able to use in the base game tutorial, and these are the base actions. For example, if you pick up a weapon, you may need to add another actions inside your weapon class. So this is the base for our game. For this, we're gonna have native input actions. Let's add some. The first one is the move one. It's basically the movement of the character, so WASD, and the input tag is gonna be move, input tag move. Add another one. This one we're gonna use the crouch, so we'll be able to crouch, and the input tag is crouch. Add another one. The last native one is look mouse. Add the input tag. I won't be setting the gamepad ones, but if you're planning to use controllers in your game, just set the stick one, look stick. And now we're gonna add some ability input actions. One for the jump, and another one a later action. We are gonna create later, so only jump for now. Input tag jump. Okay, save it, and we already set it into our hero data asset. Okay, now I think that we are ready to set our hero data default pawn data here into our experience. We'll use the base game tutorial one. Only one last thing I think is to create the cosmetic thing. Basically, we'll need to choose which cosmetic class we're gonna be using. It's gonna be basically an action. Can open our folders, and we are gonna create a folder called character and another one called cosmetics. And inside here, we're gonna create a blueprint class inherited from Lyra controller components character parts. This one. And we're gonna call it bpic base game tutorial character. And open it. It's gonna be pretty simple. We just need to put in the begin play a function called add character part. Can split and select. I'll be using the many one, be many, that again is in the content folders. It's only these. For example, if you want to use a meta-human, or I don't know, select your character cosmetic. If you create a HUD for the user to select, you'll need to choose which class the player selected and set it here. So this is gonna be your visual character class, and it's only these. Inside our experience, we'll need to basically put that class in an action. So it's basically a add components action, and we're gonna add only one component item into our list, and it's gonna be into our controller, and it's gonna be our pick base game tutorial character, and we will only want it into our server. We don't need to have it into our clients. I think that we may be able to play the game. Let's see. In our pawn class, actually we need to set in our construction script, we'll need to choose which link enemy layer we'll use for now. For the base one, we'll need to use the unarmed one. So basically pick up your mesh and link enemy class layers. Here we can use the unarmed enemy layers. Compile, save. Okay, so this is it. We have our Lyra character that runs, and it's totally clean and simple, empty. You can jump, you can crouch, so it works pretty well. And we are using the unarmed enemy layer. Yeah, so if this is only what you wanted, you can keep from here and create your own game, do your stuff, and yeah, so this is the main goal. But now I'm gonna add a feature just to give an example. and we are gonna basically put a walk and jog toggle, so we won't just run just like the base Lyra. So as you can see, we are running and only running, but we are gonna add a walk and jog toggle. So it's basically the left shift as you saw in the beginning. The first thing that we'll need to set is into our default pawn class. We'll set into our character movement. We'll need to set the max walk speed to 300. So this is gonna be the default one. So now if you see, character basically runs in a slow motion. It's a pretty weird slow motion, but we're gonna fix it. For this, we're gonna need a gameplay ability. Basically, let's create a jog ability. For that, let's create a folder here in the character that is called heroes. And inside heroes, we're gonna have a abilities. Here, let's create blueprint class inherited from Lyra gameplay ability, and it's gonna be our gameplay ability hero jog. Here we're gonna put our logic. As you can see, we already have these two events that basically when this gameplay ability be activated, it's gonna call this guy, and when it ends, it's gonna call this one. So this is how Lyra works. It has a lot of gameplays abilities. Before we start putting our logic, let's open the class defaults. Inside our ability tags, let's create one for our ability. So open abilities, type, action, and inside here we're gonna click in the plus and put one called jog. And that's it. Oh, and in the activation owned tags, we're gonna put an event movement, click on the plus and jog. Why is that? This event we're gonna need for choosing which animation we're gonna use. We're gonna need this event inside our animation blueprint. And now let's create the base logic. It's gonna be pretty simple. We're gonna get our get Lyra character from actor info, so this will return our character, the one that we are possessing. And let's check if it's valid. It's always good. It's gonna be when we activate the ability. After that, let's get our character movement. It's basically this guy right here. And here, let's get our default max speed. So max walk speed. We'll need to store it into a variable, because after we release the jog key, we'll need to go back to our default speed. Let's create this variable. I don't like using spaces, so I'm gonna fix it and put default. And this we can set into a internal category. And now we can set to our goal speed. Basically set walk speed, max walk speed. Also, we are gonna use a variable for configuring. Let's put into config category, and this one will use 600. So 600 we're gonna set as the max speed. And after this, every gameplay ability we need to end in some point, and we're gonna end when we release the key. So basically we need to use a wait input release and test if already is released, and on release we end ability. When we do it, when we end the ability, let's grab again our character, return our max speed to the default one that we stored before. Okay, so now we may be able to go to our new max speed and go back when we end our ability. Okay, but in order to use this ability, we need to configure some small things. This is gonna be inside our ability set. So we have jump here. Now we're gonna have another ability called gameplay ability hero jog, and for that we'll need a input tag called jog. Yeah, so basically when we receive an input tag jog, we'll activate this ability. So it's basically this. In order to activate our brand new input tag, we'll need to use a input action. This input action we actually need to create here in the content folder, because we are using this mapping, and in order to use this default mapping, which is basically all our mappings, the input action actually needs to be here in the content. If you create your input action into your game feature folder, you'll have some problems, and because I don't really want to duplicate all these mappings, I'll create inside here. It's not a real problem. So input action, jog, and inside here don't really need to do anything. Now let's open the mapping, IMC default keyboard mapping. Inside here, let's create another mapping that's gonna be our input action jog. And for that, we'll need two mappings. One is gonna be our left shift, that is player mappable, and the display settings, we can put, I don't know, jog, and display name jog. So this will appear in our configuration HUD, configuration menu, and this other one is gonna be player mappable, and this is the secondary one, jog secondary, and we can also call it jog. Okay, so just for visual stuff. Okay, we are done here, and finally let's, inside our input data, let's add this input action that we have just created. So add a ability input action and set it to input action jog. And for the input tag, of course, we'll need to put the input tag jog that we've just created. Okay, save it, and we may be able to see something. So if you walk and press shift, you can see that the character will start jogging, but we still have some weird animations. We don't want that. We need to put the walk animations and the jog ones if we are actually jogging. So let's fix this. Inside the character, heroes, mannequin, animations, animation blueprint, mannequin base, we're gonna configure some small things. Here, related to these events that we talked about, we're gonna have a gameplay tag bindings here. We're gonna create another variable for the gameplay tag is jogging. Gonna be a boolean. In order to set this depending on the event, depending on these events, we can open the class defaults, come here into the end and open this gameplay tag property map. Here we are gonna add another one, and we're gonna search for the event movement jog. So yeah, and the variable that will be changing is the is jogging. It's just this. As you can see, it's already doing the same thing with other gameplay abilities. So this is only this we need to set into the animation blueprint. Now into this linked layers folder and animation blueprint item anim layers base, we'll put the logic for toggling between walking and jogging. Here we are gonna go to, actually first let's create a function. This function is gonna be get is walking. If we use walk instead jogging, it's easier for putting here. And this function is gonna be into a states category, and it's gonna be a pure function and threaded safe. Here is gonna be basically a boolean, so outputs return value boolean. We're gonna return grab the access property access, and search for here in game main animation blueprint and gameplay tag. Actually we need the ADS, so gameplay tag is ADS, and our is jogging. So we're gonna need these two. We are using this EDS because we don't want to mess up with the ShooterCore and it uses these ADS. So yeah, we will basically keep this logic. Oh, and we are gonna be using the ADS state, which the character basically walks. So that's why we are using something related to ADS. When you aim down sights into the ShooterCore, you basically start walking, and we're gonna use these animations. So ADS or not jogging or basically walking. So if we are aiming or walking, let's return true. So this is it for our function. Now we are gonna be updating some specific places right here. The first one is a function called setup start anim right here, and here it's using the is ADS. We're gonna delete it and use our is walking function. So it's basically this. Next function is update cycle anim right here. So again, delete the is ADS and put the is walking. And now setup stop aim, setup stop aim anim right here. So delete and put the is walking. Get desired pivot sequence, get desired pivot sequence right here in pivots, and delete but the is walking. And finally, can play idle break. Here, idle break, can play idle break. Let's delete the ADS and use the is walking. Okay, it's basically this. Let's see the final results. Now we have the walking animations, and if we press the left shift, we start jogging, and this is the final results. I really hope this tutorial helped you. So please, if you enjoy, help me letting a thumb up or subscribing or sharing the video. I don't know, I like sharing knowledge, so it's a pleasure for me doing this tutorial. And this is it. Thanks for watching. If you have any doubts or problem, just ask in the comments. I will answer it. And thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.